Hello and welcome everyone to yet another one of my Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. videos. Good news everyone, the show has been renewed for a 5th season, so we'll be watching 2 Marvel series on ABC come next fall, those being Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Inhumans. It is pretty good news actually. I'm a big fan of the series and it was pretty sad seeing how low it has gone in ratings season after season, but more specifically one episode after the other over the course of the current season, until there was the Agents of Hydra arc, which lifted the show up to a whole new level of awesome. Introducing the framework, the Hydra Arc, a comic book character as strong and intense as Madame Hydra, even if the entire arc was 5 episodes long, did the trick and definitely increased the show's ratings and viewership enough to score it a renewal. It was, in my personal opinion, the best arc so far on the entirety of the show since its first season, followed by all the arcs that involved Grant Ward as part of them. The season though wasn't all that bad from the get-go. Actually, this season completely reinvented the show, working on multiple arcs rather than the one arc that keeps expanding every season, starting with the Ghost Rider and the introduction of Robbie Reyes, to granting us a big villain for said arc in Eli Morrow, aka Molecule Man. But regardless of how good and decent that start was, it didn't seem to help the show's ratings and viewership. Instead, and as a matter of fact, the show kept suffering decay in both viewership and ratings throughout the arc, and up until the Terminator, iRobot style Rise of AIDA LMD arc came into existence. That is when the show started having relatively steady ratings, but none of us expected how far the LMD arc would go, that AIDA would just plug everyone into the framework, bringing back Hydra, Trip, and most importantly Ward. But Agents of Hydra worked magic, actually increasing the ratings and moving the show from a toss-up between renewal and cancellation to one of the more likely to be renewed for a new season series. Now, as I mentioned in a previous video, this entire arc opened the door to a Marvel multiverse within the TV universe. It's true it started with more of a virtual world, but who's to say this cannot be expanded into a lot more, allowing the show to realize its true potential. The concept of the multiverse has done the DC Arrowverse shows a lot of good so far. It gave them the Flash more than the others, of course, a lot of versatility in terms of the kind of stories they could offer the audience. And with the renewal of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for a 5th season, I think building up and capitalizing on this idea should be considered. The show does not necessarily have to venture into a world where everything is different the way it was within the framework, but at least a world where a few things are different enough to give room for a variation of what we've been seeing so far. And of course, Ward being alive should be an integral part of such a world. Now, I haven't uploaded any reviews for the past couple of episodes. I'm planning to upload one for the finale though, but there have been a lot of Easter eggs when it comes to the most recent episode, including Ivanov's head in a jar, creating identical LMD copies of himself, something that is most definitely true to the whole LMD arc in the comics. But more importantly, there were AIDA's powers, teleportation and telekinesis. They seem to be a direct reference to both Gordon on the 2nd season of the show, and of course Lincoln. But the episode as well marked the return of Robbie Reyes, aka the Ghost Rider, to the fold of the show, and that adds to things I expect to see on the 5th season. I believe Reyes should become an integral part of Team S.H.I.E.L.D., or at least end up every once in a while coming in to lend them a hand of help. Chloe Bennet as well has been doing a way better job this season. I know a lot of fans kind of dislike her, but she's come to finally settle into that character of hers, even though her time outside S.H.I.E.L.D. and on the run early on this season wasn't all that interesting to watch. Of course, it was most definitely sad watching Jeffrey Mace go. For some reason I thought the movies could use him as some sort of new Captain America. I could see him being part of it and adding a whole different kind of character to the Avengers team. However, with him now dead, it doesn't seem to be happening anymore, even though seemingly hinted in a conversation between him and Coulson earlier this season. The reason that came to my mind though is simply because the comic book Jeffrey Mace, aka the Patriot, is also known to be the 2nd Captain America post the loss of Steve Rogers. But it isn't just Daisy Johnson and Jeffrey Mace that did this season good. In fact, while they did a great job, they weren't the best thing about it. The many personalities of Fitz were all great and well acted. The Fitz who found himself keeping Radcliffe's secret because he saw a father figure in him. The Fitz who would then go after Radcliffe for what he has done and how he's used AIDA. The Fitz who is an evil and sadistic bastard within the framework, and finally, the one confused about all the bad things he has done within that very framework. May as well was very well portrayed this season, from semi-robotic May to emotional LMD May to Season 1 and Season 2 robotic May, only instead of being an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D, being an agent of Hydra. And finally, and on the most recent episode, there was confused May, considering how long she's been gone into the framework. There was as well the whole possible relationship between her and Coulson, capitalizing on which presented us with something that was fun and interesting to watch. Another one, of course, is Coulson. He kept cracking me up every time he started being this goofy teacher within the framework. I'll never forget the whole soap theory he had. It was so funny and such an eye-opener. I'm actually making my own soap now. Over the ages of Hydra Arc, I loved as well how AIDA fixed all these little regrets for everyone. When you think about it, it was really good to watch every single one of the characters act in a completely different manner because of such minor changes. That as well reflected the true potential of the show, kind of presented us with a dry run of what the show could be like and how it would work if it would go for something like the multiverse I spoke of early on in this video. Again, I'm totally rooting for that being done on the show, only without having to repeat what we watched on this one arc, but rather building new storylines or possibly borrowing some out of the comics. Now when it comes to Hydra, at the very end of this week's episode and the promo of the finale promises us more framework, and to be honest, for me, the more Hydra, the better. The question though happens to be about whether this arc would end on this season or if it would have to go into next season with members of the team having to jump back in and fight their way through to get Mac and Yo-Yo out. But the finale will also leave us with a very important question. Who is the new director of S.H.I.E.L.D? Now it would kind of make sense that it would be Coulson, but he has shown very limited interest in resuming his role as director every time the conversation came up. He did seem pretty excited though to be once more calling the shots when he realized Mace is but a fraud created by Talbot halfway through the current season. But there was also this one conversation between Coulson and Daisy right when she came back into the fold of S.H.I.E.L.D. close to the end of the Ghost Rider arc, one that was all about him seeing her as the director in Jeffrey's place. That as well happened to be a straight comic book Easter egg, considering Daisy Johnson does end up becoming the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. at some point in the comics. Now I know a lot of fans of the show aren't really fans of the Sky, Daisy, Quake character, not fans of Chloe Bennet in general. I was okay with her at some point, found her whiny on some occasions, but she's definitely pulled through this season. That was probably very noticeable on the Hydra arc. She was smarter at making decisions during her time in the framework than Simmons was, and didn't allow her emotions to get the better of her. She acted like a true leader. So when you come to think of it, she could end up being the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. on the next season. But on another note, I believe the 5th season should build up its ultimate villain as well in a similar way to how it ended up building AIDA. I think most of us didn't expect the show would take the LMD AIDA arc this far when the season started. Most of us were probably going, okay, so AIDA from the comics is actually on the side of good, maybe she will be as well. Most of us were thinking as well AIDA was hot and Fitz and Radcliffe are lucky bastards, but that's a different story. Then a few episodes down the road when Radcliffe had her attempt to steal the Darkhold, we were probably all like, so Rise of the Machines, an iRobot or Terminator kind of scenario, let's see how it plays out. Then there was the framework, AIDA killing Radcliffe and throwing him into it, getting all these agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as well to be part of the whole thing, before we also realized she is Madame Hydra in the framework. And once more, all we could have imagined at first is this was all about going for control and maybe feeling the way humans do through jumping into the framework yourself and becoming Madame Hydra. The whole Pinocchio, I want to become a little girl scenario was very unexpected and very well done, and Mallory Jansen, the actress who plays AIDA, gave a pretty solid performance all the way through, from being the seemingly clueless, obedient robot to her master Radcliffe, to becoming the strong, powerful robot, becoming harder and harder to control post a reading of the Darkhold, to becoming more of a rebellious robot and killing her master, to being the framework Ophelia, to becoming human and emotional and trying momentarily to err on the side of good, to being the woman scorned with superpowers that could destroy everything. But let's not forget that she also portrayed the role of Agnes and did a completely different character portrayal on that one. I think that is the core definition of how a good villain is created, and now that they have got the formula for it, they should most definitely repeat the experiment on Season 5 and give us a similarly formidable villain. But to sum it all up, congratulations to all the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fans out there. The show has earned itself this renewal by presenting us with one hell of a season, throwing us in one direction and then pulling us into a completely different one with each and every episode, and especially on the most recent arc. But with that being said, let me know in the comments how excited you are for the renewal of Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for a 5th season, how you like the Marvel's Agents of Hydra arc so far, how you like the AIDA arc so far, and of course your thoughts on the next season of the show and what you'd like to see on it. And remember, it's always much appreciated if you drop me a like if you like the content of this video, and if you subscribe if you want to see more of my reviews and videos on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you soon.